welcome Dr. Chitra ma'am, Dr. Chitra Ramurthy, who is the medical director at the well-known Eye Foundation, has been a very active ARC chairperson of AIS in the past. And ma'am is one of the at the forefront of refractive cataract and keratoconus treatments, and she's going to speak to us about something which is very exciting. I think something which has evolved in last decade and is now making more waves is the topo-guided PRK and the TREC with cross-linking in keratoconus. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Vardhaman, for the nice introduction. Without wasting time, good afternoon to the moderators on dais and dear audience. My due to talk on topo-guided treatment for irregular corneas. We've all come to understand one thing very clearly, that cross-linking is definitely ensuring that the disease is getting stabilized. But then, there are a lot of corneal irregularities which are generated by the keratoconus disease, and when you leave it untreated, then they are visually handicapped. So you need to rehabilitate the vision, either by giving them glasses, if the cornea allows, or the rose-K lenses, or you have to think of doing a topo-guided PRK to regularize the cornea with CXL or TREC, or otherwise think of doing cross-linking and a phakic IOL. So then, when would I do a topo-guided PRK with CXL or TREC is, if the vision is not improving, is not good post-CXL, you understand before doing the procedure itself, the patient vision is definitely handicapped by the irregularities on the cornea, the coma is more. So if the corneal thickness is more than 450, I would do a topo-guided PRK, and if the cornea is less than 450, I would do TREC. So basically, what is the topo-guided regularization? It's a combination of a myopic and a hyperopic treatment. So what it does is, this is a steep cone. So it flattens the central cone by doing a myopic treatment and lifts up the flat area above here, so that then you end up having a larger, flatter cone, which will better give biomechanics and the quality of vision to the cornea. So you need to have a minimal thickness of 450 micron, after ablation 350, and post-operatively once the epithelium grows, it becomes 400 micron. The advantage is, don't do a cross-linking and then do a topo-guided regularization. It's best to do it at the same time. It saves time. And by doing a cross-linking after a topo-guided regularization, then what it does is, it reduces the haze because of the apoptosis of keratocytes, and because it has denuded the Bowman, so there's better penetration of riboflavin when the cross-linking occurs. The protocol is the accelerated protocol of CXL, which is done, and because we all know there's less haze and there's less flattening effect. But we also know that in a keratoconic eye, the epithelium is thinner in the center than in the periphery. So if you were to manually debride it, you would have variably removed the epithelium. So it makes sense to do a PTK, wherein you're regularly removing the epithelium and a little bit of stroma and making it a more aspheric surface, which augurs for better visual clarity. So then you can treat this optic zone, go up to 5.52 here, and you can remove up to largely 50, but you can go up to 80 micron if thickness allows, and you need to have repeatable measurements. So I'm going to go faster here. You look at the mean deviation, look at these maps. You want a tighter mean deviation, 0.05, you remove some of the outliers. You feed in all the data, K1, K2, corneal thickness and all that. Now here, if you look carefully, if you are not treating the refractive error, putting 0 everywhere, for this kind of central cone, this is the myopic and the peripheral ablation, removing about 15, 16 micron. So then, but we are allowed to remove up to 50 to 80 if the corneal thickness allows. The idea is you don't remove all of it, even if the cornea allows, because there's some flattening effect by the CXL which has to be kept in mind. The idea is to give him a better uncorrected vision, not a complete correction of vision. So here, look at it. The topo-guided axis is pulled down. The refraction value is pulled down, and the optic zone is kept at 6, and this is the ablation pattern which is happening in this particular patient. In this particular patient, you should ensure that the anterior float resembles the ablation resembles what is there on the anterior float, and here you can't correct the entire 6 cylinder, but part of the cylinder is corrected with the axis of the topo-guided, and this is about 58 micron is removed. So what happens, the patient from a counting finger 3 meters becomes 660 uncorrected, and there's a significant debulking of the refraction. And look at the cornea, it's so decentered here, it's so symmetric here. This is a lot of inferior superior asymmetry, a decentered cone. without correcting the refraction, just reshaping the cornea itself guzzles up 47 micron of the tissue. This is again another case with significant asymmetry, and without doing any refractive correction, a 38 micron goes. But then, look at the symmetry of the topography here. But what did you notice? It was 0.5 here, it becomes minus 3.25. So you need to tell a patient when you're doing a decentered topographic regularization that you would be inducing some myopia in some of these eyes, because you're flattening here too. So there is some myopia which is getting induced. Now this is again another very decentered cone. Here you are correcting up to minus 2. But when you look that the refraction is allowing +1 hyperopia, here 58 micron is eaten up. So when you add that +1 to the correction, it requires only 51 micron. So these are small micro adjustments you can do. Now for a centered cone, 3-cylinder, the topography regularizes and the refraction reduces to 0.5. This is a decentered cone with -3 cylinder. See, it becomes plano, and the topography gets so symmetric. One thing you need to remember is that you need to use mitomycin C for 20 to 40 seconds, and there have been favorable results. Canalopolis study says that over 10-year study shows both keratometric and visual stability. Only 3.5% showed progressive flattening. So then, do you treat only keratoconic eyes? Why not treat pellucid, iatrogenic ectasia, decentered ablation, and all of these? So here is a case of a post-LASIK ectasia. Look how irregular the cornea is. Without doing any refractive correction, 624 goes to uncorrected 612. And look at the symmetry of the cornea and just a 0.75 cylinder. So then moving on to TREC. Now TREC is a cyclotorsion compensated localized TREC treatment, wherein you need to identify the localized cone on the anterior tangential map. You have to measure the long and short axis. What you do is, over the cone, you do a PTK of removing 20 micron along with the epithelium, and the periphery, you do a manual debridement, and then you do accelerated cross-linking. So then, and what is this offset? It's the distance between the center of the cone to the center of the pupil. So then you also measure the epithelial thickness on the ASOCT. And then what you're doing is feeding all these datas. All the datas which I said, you feed in here. And then look at this. Here there is 5-cylinder and decentered cone. And look how the patient comes to 0. Now you can't promise this to all patients. This was a magical treatment here. Here there is debulking. The cornea becomes so much more symmetric, and there's a significant reduction of the refractive error. This is another situation. There was 3.35 cylinder. It reduces to less cylinder, and the cornea becomes symmetric. So there is a variable improvement in different TREC treatments, but definitely there's a regularization of the topography, reduction of the cylinder, and better spectacle corrected vision. In other words, the TREC gives corneal regularization, minimal stromal ablation, improved visual acuity, enhanced contact lens fit, and better acceptance of glasses. So when you look at both of them, TREC is for more advanced keratoconus, wherein you can't, it's less than 450 micron thickness, and TREC is preferred for advanced KC, thinner cornea, whereas TGPRK is for moderate KC, pachymetry over 450, and a fairly centered cone. So definitely it goes without saying that though I've gone rapidly in the last 7 minutes, we come so strikingly clear for mild to moderate keratoconus. Why would you not do topo-guided PRK with cross-linking when it is so promising and as a procedure, and it gives so much a degree of uncorrected visual acuity or a better BCVA to all these patients? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramachandramurthy, giving us such a wonderful talk regarding this topo-guided and cross-linking keratoconus management, and so many thanks to you for such a wonderful